The tropical development area in the Gulf of Mexico back up to a 50% chance, how it could develop and who it could impact. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on a Friday. Hope things are doing well. Coming up in this video, we'll take a look at some of the weather we've had across our area for today. We're going to keep a close eye on what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico for the potential tropical development in that area as we get into next week, and a couple of more areas to discuss in the Atlantic as well. You know, I'd love to hear from you guys. Hope you're doing well on this Friday. Let me know in the comments section below where you're viewing from, what the weather has been like. What do you say we get started with just kind of what's been going on across our area for today? And we'll sneak into the northwest side of the Caribbean to kind of start. Again, a little bit of a fade in our enhanced satellite imagery earlier, but that's just fine. Again, showers and storms continue to develop across this area on this Friday afternoon. Some of that has produced some locally heavy rainfall and some gusty winds, especially over portions of western Cuba, right across the Yucatan Peninsula, Cancun, Cozumel, back down towards Tulum. Going to try and drift inland as well. Let me throw back on the lightning data so you can see again, this is not just rain. This is pretty intense thunderstorm activity. Now, again, in the short term, not expecting us to get tropical development over the Yucatan or the Northwest Caribbean in the short term, but down the road into the southwest Gulf of Mexico, that is a potential. And again, it's still going to be a very active pattern here. Rain totals are going to be high, rain chances are going to be high as that monsoonal trough has lifted to the north across our Central American gyre. Now, in the short term, the farther south that you go, the quieter it's going to be in general. We're still going to have some showers and storms for Belize and scattered storms over Honduras and Nicaragua. You get down towards Costa Rica and Panama, though, going to be a little bit quieter forecast in the short term as some of the moisture has been pulled up to the north with the storms that we've been talking about. Over to the Bahamas, seeing a few scattered showers and thunderstorms trying to develop here on this late Friday afternoon. Nothing extremely significant. I'll throw on the radar data here to take off the satellite data real quick. We've had a couple of storms develop across Florida, but notice that the flow are taking these showers and storms from east to west. So instead of drifting off the east coast of Florida and moving into Walker's Key and Grand Bahama and the Abacos and Bimini and Andros and New Providence, they're actually trying to move back off towards the west. So again, spotty rain here, no lightning out of any of this at this point in time. And some of that activity will be present in the central Bahamas as well. But again, nothing outrageous on this Friday afternoon. On over to my friends in Jamaica. It's been relatively quiet. It's been relatively dry for today. Bringing on the water vapor imagery, there's a little bit of drier air that snuck back into place. So again, with this tropical moisture pulling north and west, on the heels of that, we're getting a little bit drier air to move its way back in. That just means that the rain chances, as I discussed in the couple of videos previously, will get a little bit lower through Negril and Savlamar and Kingston and Port Moore and Spanish Town. Isolated rain. There'll be a couple of showers here or there. We're seeing that right now. Little storm towards the Black River area, but again, is it going to be significant? No, and it is going to remain fairly isolated. Even the eastern sides of Cuba have been a little bit quieter for today, and just a few showers trying to drift on through the southeast Bahamas and the Turks, the Caicos. Speaking of relatively quiet, again, we've had just a few storms develop across Haiti and the Dominican Republic on this Friday. It means it's been uber hot in some areas. Feels like temperatures reaching above 110. That is a feels like or heat index, not the actual air temperature, but what it really feels like when you step outside. And that means it's above 43 degrees Celsius for that feels like temperature at a couple of spots. On over to our friends in Puerto Rico for today. Switch on over to the visible satellite imagery. Had a couple of storms again develop here on the southern side of the island. Still have that kind of northeast or east-northeast flow, which is allowing a little bit better chances for a few storms on the southern side of the island for today. Yauco, Ponce, some of the areas getting some of that rain. It's been relatively quiet with just a couple of showers developing over portions of the U.S. and British Virgin Islands on this Friday afternoon as well. And it's the same scenario here across the Lesser Antilles as well. Scattered rain, again, still favoring the southern and the western sides of the islands with this east to northeast flow for Anguilla, St. Bart's, Sabas, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat. These are your actual air temperatures. You can see that we've had, again, a little bit of rain develop, and those are when the numbers will fall back back down towards the Guadalupe area. A little bit heftier showers and storms there. You can see the lightning strikes that developed a little bit earlier on this Friday afternoon. A little bit quieter in Dominica for today. Martinique had a couple of showers across portions of the islands. But again, not everyone is going to get this rain even across these smaller islands. St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, again, a few isolated heavier downpours have developed. Within some of these spots, we're looking at 1 to 3 inches of rain in a couple of areas. It's been relatively quiet in Trinidad and Tobago until just in the last hour. We've had a few showers develop there, so a little bit earlier rain near Port of Spain on this Friday, and then we got Tobago to get a few showers here late on this Friday afternoon. And our friends in the ABC Islands for today, again, an isolated shower possible coming off the mainland. I'll switch back over to our enhanced satellite imagery, and you can see some of that moisture trying to kind of spin back up to the north. So that's what's happening across our area on this Friday afternoon. And again, some spots have had some heavier rain, especially up closer to where we could get some tropical development early next week in the Gulf of Mexico. As we get into the forecast portion of the video, appreciate you guys taking a quick second and liking this. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo, sharing this with your family and friends, and of course, appreciate the support that you can find in the description below as well. All right, so now we're going to get into the kind of the meat and potatoes of the potential tropical development here. First things first, we're going to take a look at what's happening here. Now, again, for this area, all right, still a very broad circulation. We are going to have a frontal boundary kind of drift south, and along that, the opportunity to try and spin something up. So the Hurricane Center has gone from a 30% chance back up to a 50% chance because the models are trending in a development potential. They're getting higher and higher with that, with at least some kind of closed low in a system that's going to be moving from the southwest Gulf of Mexico and into the eastern Gulf of Mexico over the next several days. So let's take a look at that first. Let me bring that up. We'll take a look at the models here. Start off with the GFS, and I'm going to loop this up. Now, overall, the models are stronger compared to 24 and 48 hours ago, but they're still relatively weak. This should still be a fairly broad, sloppy system, but there is absolutely a possibility that down the road in the next few days, we get a tropical depression or maybe even a weak to moderate tropical storm. That would be Milton, right? The 13th named storm of the hurricane season, because we've ticked off 4 since Helene, and we did it in a short amount of time. Now, with this frontal boundary drifting off to the south, that means that whatever develops here is going to get pushed east and eventually southeast. So rather than trying to move north into Texas or Louisiana or Mississippi or Alabama, more than likely this is going to drift east across Florida. Now, it's going to be bad news in a couple of ways. First of all, this could be a very high rain maker. And the western portions of Florida still dealing with the aftermath of Helene. We've talked a lot about what's been happening in the Carolinas recently, but again, the west coast of Florida got hammered with a lot of flooding, a lot of storm surge, and now we have potentially 3, 6, 9+ inches of rain, depending on the model, trying to move back into the peninsula of Florida, really beginning on Sunday and then picking up steam through the rest of the week, potentially maximum Wednesday or a maximum on Thursday. Let me put back on here the model timeline so you guys can clearly see that. So let's break down how this might play out on the GFS model. This is the deterministic, of course. Then we'll look at the ensemble products. First of all, again, as this is just trying to gather up over the weekend, we'll have a few showers kind of move back in. This will be the same situation for the Yucatan and Cuba. Cayman Islands will be relatively dry out of this, but down the road, early next week, here is where we could pick up the development. Now again, this is going to be on Monday, right, where we could potentially start to see this, and then this slides east across the peninsula Tuesday and Wednesday on the GFS model. As a matter of fact, let me bring this out just a little bit farther to show you the full evolution of this into Thursday. So let me loop that up. Again, sloppy, wet system, big time rainmaker, could though be a tropical storm. It's not out of the question. For the Bahamas, we're going to have some pretty good rains if this plays out in the northwest side of the Bahamas. So it's going to get wet here for Walker's Key. and Grand Bahama and Abaco and Bimini and Andros and New Providence and Eleuthera, maybe as far south as Exuma and Cat Island, places like that. But the farther north you are in the Bahamas, the better chance that you have to see some of this heavier rain. So that's going to be a situation to play out here over the week ahead. Again, slow development, if anything, but a very wet system is likely for Florida and portions of Cuba, the Northwest Bahamas, and the Yucatan as well. Let's bring up the surface winds so you guys can get an idea of that. I'll take off the formation zone just a little bit easier to see. Again, what we're looking at here is, do we actually have a true low-level center of circulation developing on the GFS model? And again, the trends have been for that to be a yes compared to 24 and 48 hours ago, all right? So we might wrap up a system here in the Central Gulf and then moving across Florida. Again, is it going to be a higher end storm? No. But we could end up getting ourselves a tropical system. So let's take a look at this. As we get into Monday and Tuesday, you clearly can see now a low-level center of circulation. These are surface-based sustained winds on the GFS model. So if we go back here and we take a look at what the wind speeds could be, you do have a tropical storm here in the south central Gulf of Mexico on Monday evening, all right? Now again, with a front sliding in from the southeast United States, it's going to try and push this east or even a little bit southeast eventually. Now if we take a look again at the GFS model for Wednesday, and we take a look at the winds, you do have a tropical storm moving into the Tampa Bay area on early Wednesday, right? About 3 a.m. So we'll see how this plays out. But clearly, tropical storm conditions are possible in central and south Florida as this moves through on the GFS. And then it gets into the western Atlantic and it becomes kind of a weaker system, but still a larger wind field. And again, late in the period here on Thursday night, back over to these winds, you can see that there could be some higher winds in the far northwest Bahamas, right? Abacos, Grand Bahama, Bimini, especially Walker's Key. Again, those are sustained winds with even some higher gusts. So please note that even as of the video from yesterday, that the chance for a tropical storm in the Gulf has gone back up. That's why the Hurricane Center is back up to a 50% chance, but the models are clinging on to a potentially stronger storm as well. Let's take a look at the GFS ensembles. Here you go. So again, these are the ensemble members of the GFS that I just showed you, 51 different members. Let's start off from the beginning of the loop. Once again, we're not going to have any development this weekend, but early next week in the Southwest Gulf, maybe even the Central Gulf, we start to see a couple of spin-ups here on the GFS model. All the trends are to kind of go east in some fashion, some slide at northeast, some slide a little bit south and east, but you can see a couple of the members have at least a tropical storm moving into the area. Now, some of them kind of linger this a little bit deeper in time, but most of the models are a little bit more progressive and then pull it through Florida in the Eastern Gulf here into Wednesday and Thursday at the latest. Now again, this could bring some heavy rain and squalls to Cuba, on the back end of this towards the Yucatan as well, and certainly the Bahamas. On over to the European model. The European model is even slightly more aggressive. You're going to see more members developing a closed center of circulation. Again, time frame Wednesday, Thursday. So if you live in Central and South Florida, you need to get prepared for what's going to be certainly a heavy rainmaker, but the opportunity to have some tropical storm conditions by early to midweek. Maybe as early as Tuesday, but more than likely the Wednesday, Thursday time frame. And again, this will slide back into the Western Atlantic. And depending on that track, we could have some tropical storm conditions as a possibility in the Northwest Bahamas as well. You can see a few of the members of the European model actually drive the actual center right through the Bahamas. However, most of them keep it slightly up towards the north. So again, it's a slow developing system, but one that has a little bit higher chance now to actually develop. Let's look at the European rainfall totals through Thursday afternoon. Again, these are actually lower than the GFS, but you see a couple of areas there actually on the east side of Florida near the Daytona Beach area that have a foot of rain. Anywhere that gets 3 to 6 plus inches of rain, especially on the West Coast, is no good. With all of the rain that they've had with Helene, and there's still a lot of cleanup that has to happen. There's still some surge issues here. So pulling in 3 to 6 inches or more into the Tampa Bay area, Bradenton, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples, it's no good. Then you look into the northwest side of the Bahamas, and again, on the European model, you're looking at about 5 inches for Bimini, 3 inches for New Providence, right around 3 inches for the Grand Bahama area, and then probably even a little bit higher total for Walker's Key. On the GFS, it's going to be even wetter than that. Let me show you that real quick. I'm going to take this out a little bit farther in time. Let's just go out, well, actually single frame it here. Sorry, guys. Let's bring this out all the way to the end of the period, then take off the tropical development area. The GFS is more robust with the rain, okay? Clearly, it's farther north, right? But you're seeing some spots here in Central Florida that are 7, 8, 9, 10 plus inches of rain on the GFS. Still some heavier rain for South Florida, but not as much. And again, pockets of heavier rain for the Bahamas, right? 3, 4 inches in a few areas, 3, 4 inches off of the east coast of Florida as well. So there is a fairly sharp cutoff on the GFS because it's farther north for Andros and New Providence and Eleuthera South. But again, keeping some heavier rain here, but the core of it is farther north and into the western Atlantic. But again, Central, South Florida need to prepare for the potential or for some very heavy rainfall. Now, the Yucatan will continue to get showers developing here, so a few inches of rain are absolutely possible out of these spots. You can see that for Cuba as well. Still could get some pockets of heavier rain over Jamaica. As the system pulls north, a south wind could bring in some of that. But again, is it going to be more isolated in nature? Absolutely. And it'll be the same situation for Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti, where ultimately, as the system pulls through, south winds should throw a little bit more moisture back into play. And I can show you that here. Let's go back over to the GFS model and then loop this up over the same time frame. So if I show you a little bit broader perspective here, as the winds start to turn a little bit more out of the south, we should start to see more rain develop back into the Northwest Caribbean. It's not going to be as concentrated, obviously, as far north as Florida and the Bahamas, but there'll be a bit better chances for rain in these areas. And you can see that surge of moisture and rain coming back out of the south, where even the ABC Islands by midweek could see better chances for rain. And some of that could pull back over the Greater Antilles with spotty scattered showers and storms expected over the Leeward Islands. Could be a little bit better chance for rain by the end of the week back down into the Windward Islands as well, Trinidad, Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Barbados. Let's talk a little about what's going to be happening here with our other storms. You have major hurricane Kirk. Winds are 130 miles with that. I think I can include this. We'll get the data to come back on. So again, 130 mile an hour winds out of Kirk. Cat 4, fish storm, just like we like it, moving well to the east of Bermuda, weakening as it gets into the open waters of the North Atlantic. You have tropical storm Leslie. Leslie is forecast to quickly become a hurricane and will teeter on the opportunity to be a major hurricane. Right now, the forecast is for it to stay weaker than that. Yesterday, it was forecast to be on the brink of a major hurricane, but hopefully, again, it doesn't. And again, to be clear, the forecast track from the Hurricane Center has it far north and east of the Lesser Antilles. All right. If I go back over to the GFS model and I loop that back up, you will see that Leslie hopefully cooperates. Let's see, pick up the beginning of the time frame here. Here comes Leslie. And again, sticking with the track from the Hurricane Center, basically right up the center line, that's going to keep it well north and east of the Lesser Antilles. So not as much of a concern today as what I had of trying to eke a little bit closer. Even the European model is slightly farther to the north and to the east. But that's something that I'll watch out for you guys in the eastern side of the Caribbean. More moisture will be coming back in, but nothing tropical in nature, and Bermuda should stay just east of this as well. So the biggest situation over the next week is what could be developing in the Gulf with some very heavy rain for the Bahamas and Florida. And again, we could get Milton. We could get a tropical storm to develop here by Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest. Friends, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for following us across all of social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You want to send me a picture or video, myMediaMundo@gmail.com. As always, you have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. And while you're down there, thank you so much for liking the video and subscribing. Friends, you have a great rest of your Friday. I'll be back soon with the latest forecast for you right here at Meteo Mundo.